15-second bedtime technique resolves and clears out the toxic mineral coating that inflames your prostate that you can do tonight no matter how old you are, no matter your current condition. Tap the watch now button below to learn how this powerful method takes only 15 seconds a day and helps you shrink your prostate in record time, while helping you feel like a fire hose, even if you've been dealing with an enlarged prostate for months, years, or even decades. Over 157,000 men are already doing this. Not only are they able to completely eliminate those annoying 4 bathroom breaks per night, but they are also rediscovering what it is like to enjoy a steady and strong urine flow. Happy to be completely free again.
Go hard, up, go home, go home, go hard, up, go home, go home, go hard, up, go home, go home, go hard, up, go home, go home. Let's go, let's go, let's get it, let's get it. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you with it? Yeah, we with it. Let's go, let's go. Get it, let's get it. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you with it? Yeah, we with it. Big time players make big time plays. 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 Go hard, 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 go hard. Cause big time players make big time plays. Big time players make big time plays. Gotta get it in a big time way. Let's get it on the grind, head on the line. Gotta stay focused, gotta keep a sound mind. It's go hard or go home, go low. Go hard, up, go home, go home, go hard, up, go home.
And we are live right here in the Talkback Live Network studios. I'm your host, Joshua Midgett, here in the building. Glad to be back with y'all on today. It is a Monday. It is February the 6th, 2023 edition of the show. Glad to be finally back with y'all on today, man. I know a lot of y'all been wondering where I've been at, man. But I'm just glad to be back on here today. So much been wanting to talk about, wanting to get in on, and especially lately. Some things in particular that I think definitely need our attention, and we're definitely going to start the conversation off with those things on today. Once again, I'm Josh Midgett, your host, Talk Sports Live, co-founder of Talkback Live Network here at the Talkback Live Network studios. And once again, man, glad to be back with y'all. If you're in and if you're watching live, be sure hit that like button. If you're in, if you're watching, also share this video as well with your friends, family, neighbors, relatives, whoever else you got, man, and let them know that we're on the air and about to talk some things, especially in particular, we're going to talk some Memphis Grizzlies. And, we know what's happening with the Grizzlies, and I'm going to deep dive in a moment on that, but it's been a real interesting last few days for the Memphis Grizzlies, really the past few weeks, going back to the Shannon Sharpe incident in Los Angeles. And ironically, when the Shannon Sharpe incident happened in Los Angeles, was the tail end of Memphis Grizzlies' 11-game winning streak. So one would think, when your team has accomplished something of that nature, and is in the middle of that, there can't be too much drama or too many bad things happening to said situation, said team, or whatever the case is. Well, that seemed to be the beginning of the avalanche. Now, I'm not saying Shannon Sharpe has anything to do with the Grizzlies losing 8 of their last 9 games. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is something has happened. Something has happened. You can't deny that either this is not the same team that we saw several weeks or months ago that was dominating and winning games left and right, seemingly getting better and better. At one point, y'all, we actually thought the Grizzlies had a deep team. At one point, we felt the Grizzlies were one of the deepest teams in the league. And that was one of the things that was talked about, even going back to last year. Man, they just seem like they don't need to sign big name free agents. They just bring in talent. They draft guys, and it just seems to work out, right? But that seems to not be the case. Either that's not the case, were we fooled all this time, or is something else going on? Let me pause for a quick second, because something always has to pop up and make noise here. But I know it's getting taken care of. But with all that being said, what is the problem? Did something change? You see the roster hasn't dramatically changed. You see we have the same coaches, same coaching staff, same situation for the most part on this team. We lost guys like Kyle Anderson from last year. I mean, I don't think that made that big of a difference. I do think he was important to this team. Guys like him and DeAnthony Melton that went on to Philadelphia. But with all that being said, what really is going on with this Memphis Grizzlies team? To me, I'm not sure that I have what you would say the answers, but I have some things on my mind that I think could be contributing factors to what's happening right now. And if you have any thoughts on that, definitely feel free to leave your thoughts down below in the comments or whatever else you may want to do. Or if you want to call in, the phone line is actually open as well. 901-213-6020 is the number. And I'm just wondering, man, how do you feel about what's happening with these Memphis Grizzlies? Do you have any answers to what may be plaguing this team? I can't say that I do. I really don't know. I don't know. Y'all, I know y'all probably got some answers, but let me throw some things at you. Because I've kind of been battling with this over the past couple of days. There's one angle where I put out last night. I'm going to go into this right now. Coach Taylor Jenkins. I think Coach Taylor Jenkins, for the most part, has done an outstanding job being a first-time head coach in the NBA. Coming in, and the meteoric rise of this franchise has to be, in a lot of ways, attributed to him and his leadership. It's incredible. This team and this coach have grown up together with Ja, with Jaren, everybody else, and the front office. All of these guys have been a package deal and have grown up together and have gotten better together. And I think that's what makes the bond so special between everybody. But now there always comes a point in the growth process where you wonder, have you reached an apex with who's leading the team? I'm not saying we have, but the question has to be at least broached. Has the apex been reached with the leadership that's currently in leadership right now? Have we gone as far as we can go with Coach Taylor Jenkins? Why are we hitting the wall right now when it comes to lineups, rotations, late game management? What's going on? Why are we getting worse instead of getting better? I think those questions are fair because I'm going to tell you something. The last couple of games, in particular the Portland game and the game last night against Toronto, really had me feeling some type of way. I can't even lie to you. It really did. And when I say some type of way, I don't mean that in a good way. I felt pretty angry at those games. I know a lot of y'all probably felt the same way. And I think a lot of that had to do with coaching. There were lineups that hadn't made no sense whatsoever. Why is Jaren Jackson off the floor in a key part of the fourth quarter that allowed Toronto to make their move? I know Ja wasn't playing. Now, I understand that's a big deal. But Tyus Jones has been fine in those situations. What in the world was I watching? I saw a lineup that had John Conchar, David Roddy. It's just the ugliest lineup I think I've ever seen. Who was it? Was it Santi Aldama? You know, I'm not knocking Santi, but it was a lineup that made no sense. You had no ball handling. You had no shooting. You had a bunch of guys with no length. Brandon Clark, I think, was playing center before he finally brought Jaren back in and finally brought Desmond Bane back in certain points in the game. And even when they were in the game, he was not utilizing them to the best of their abilities, at least in my point of view. There were times where Bane just had to take the ball and just drive to the basket with his head down. What's good, Isaac? Good to see you, man. I definitely want to get your thoughts on this. If you want to call, if you want to give your comments down below as well. A lot of y'all liking the video. Appreciate that. Y'all come on in. Give me your thoughts on what's going on here. But, and even with this, what was so maddening late in that game against Toronto, the high pick and rolls with Xavier Tillman and Tyus Jones over and over and over and over. Not Tyus Jones and Jaren Jackson. Tyus Jones and Xavier Tillman. And Tillman played well, but what are we doing? Those are questions. Let's go to the phone lines.
Call from
Isaac.
to accept, press 1.
All right, we got the man himself. I'm so glad he called because I know he's got thoughts on what I'm talking about here. My man, Isaac Simpson, Sports Ethos. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, what's up, Josh? I'm good, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm something. I'm something. But how you feeling, man? What are you thinking about what's going on?
Yeah, man, it's a tough situation. I mean, like I said, going back to the summer, I know anybody that's a Grizz fan that on Grizz Twitter or anything. So I had a lot of thoughts this summer and got a lot of pushback on kind of my thoughts. And I think a lot of people now are kind of coming around to kind of some of the same things I was saying this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just talking overall about the state of the team. When it comes to the front office, I think they peaked so early. They went so fantastic. I mean, this meteoric rise, like you spoke to earlier, of this team, things went so well for them that I kind of feel like they've gotten cocky a little bit. And you go back to the summer where you trade Melton, you let Kyle Anderson walk, and you had this idea, oh, well, we could just draft guys. We've done so well drafted. We just draft guys and fill in. We'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that hasn't been the case. I think if you see now, you can look back on that situation as it was probably a mistake. I don't think they had a particularly great offseason. And I think they're so content to kind of keep to slow walk this process that they might end up missing their window. Mm-hmm. Because people, and I know this is a young team, and people say, oh, well, we have several years to do this. We don't have to do anything. We just let this marinate. But windows can close for a myriad of different reasons. Nothing is guaranteed in the future. And I feel like this team is so close. I mean, I feel like if they hadn't had the injuries they had last year, I think this team could have, at minimum, went to the finals and possibly won a championship. And now this year, you're right back at the top of the West, but you're still kind of, oh, well, we're going to develop guys, we're going to draft guys. And I'm not a person that feels like, oh, well, they need to go out and just blow out all their assets and go get KD or anything. But there are things that they could do around the margin, medium-sized moves, smaller moves that could help this team. And I got a feeling that they do nothing at the deadline because I feel like they don't really care about this season as far as whether they win a championship or not. I think they're just kind of, if we just happen to fall into a championship this year, fine, but we're definitely good if we don't because we got all this time. Mm-hmm. And I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with their thinking, and I'm worried about kind of like their ideology of how this goes forward because I got a feeling you can look up in a couple of years and they're going to be like, you capped out, you got Jarl and Supermax, you got Jaren on his big contract, and you'll see what happened with Dylan Brooks, but you lock him up, they've locked Brandon Clark up, they've kind of locked all these guys up, and you're not going to have any flexibility, and you're going to be a really good team, but still haven't got over the hump yet. And that's my big fear with what we've seen.
You know, it's a great point. I'm glad you brought up this offseason because I know you going through it, man. Becca, you give me your thoughts.
Man, it was on my head, man, this summer, man.
I'm telling you. And it kind of didn't help the way they started the year, you know, because, it kind of looked, I think it was going pretty well. But, and I think a lot of that's contributed to Johnson. Like he took another step in his superstardom and then everything else, from last year and all that. But I feel like, and I don't know if this is true or not. I'm curious what y'all think, what you think, Isaac. Did Steven Adams cover up this many abundance of sins, so to be on this team as far as their weaknesses, or is this just revealing itself? And why now? Because I really can't even completely figure that out because you can almost see the line of demarcation was right there at the Shannon Sharp game for whatever reason. The 11-game winning streak, and then boom, and then the Steven Adams injury, and then everything seems to just kind of unravel to some degree. What do you think the problem is? Were they just getting exposed because of that injury, or is something else?
Real quick, I think Sonny's development has even saved him even more. If Sonny hadn't turned into the player that he's turned into, I think it would have really been bad, like their off season and kind of some of the things they did. I think he saved them a little bit because I felt like he would take a step, but I don't think anybody saw what we're seeing from him. Like I never thought he'd be the player that he's been on the defensive end. I mean, he's a real deal player.
Yes,
like not just like some bottom of the rotation player, man. He's a real deal player, man. So he's legit, and I think that helped him a lot as far as the Steven Adams thing. My guy, and shout out to Anthony Sane. He's got been talking about this. Like he worries that how much Steven Adams means to this team, and I think he does.
Mm-hmm.
I think because people think of Steven Adams as the rebound and everything, but it's not just the rebound. I mean, it's the screen setting, the playmaking. They run a lot of offense through him, and they already struggle in the half court anyway, scoring. And when you don't have him kind of as that facilitator to run offense through, it's a problem. And now they're also giving up extra offensive rebounds. They were already a team who gave up a lot of three-pointers, and they don't hit three-pointers themselves. So I think he really does have that type of impact. I mean, and I've talked about that before. I don't think Steven Adams gets enough credit for the things he does, man. The screen setting, the playmaking. I really think when you look at the centers around the league, and a lot of people might think I'm crazy about this, but his impact, the impact that he has, I think he should be in an all-star conversation. Because I'm saying he is, I mean, I think you're seeing right now with this team, I think he means everything, especially on the offensive end. I mean, they're just a different team now, and people are wondering why they're not shooting so many threes now and not going inside. I think that's a direct effect of not having Steven Adams, because I think they're kind of scared to drive now. Those lanes aren't there, so they're just settling for three-pointers. And I think that's during this kind of loser streak when he got hurt. I think that's a big problem that they've had, and I think it's directly tied to him. So I really do think he has that kind of impact. And
you know,
like I said, my guy Sane said go ahead.
No,
sorry.
Don't you go to your point though. I started noticing this, you know, from last year and into this year. I'm like, man, he almost plays like a if you remember when Mark Gasol was here, it's almost like a quarterback offensively, you know, as far as
exactly
pointing and putting guys in their spots. Ja's a great point guard, but it seems like it frees Ja up from as much responsibility as he would have if it was for Steven Adams kind of directing traffic, being in the right spots, setting the right screens, pointing out where guys should be. It's really similar to a Mark Gasol type effect.
Yeah, I 100% agree. He's not the player, obviously not the player offensively that Mark is, but all the other things he definitely that he brings to the table. Super high basketball IQ. I mean, he just covered up a lot of stuff for this team. Again, offensive rebounds. This team has kind of lived off that second chance points. They're not getting that. And again, the screen setting opened up the lanes for Ja to get in the lane, because Ja is sometimes still trying to kind of make these same moves and try to penetrate into the paint, but he's not finishing the same way that he was. And I think a lot of that has to do with Steven Adams. So he definitely covers up a lot for this team. And that's kind of an interesting dynamic, because you kind of saw in the playoffs last year where they got decided that they couldn't even play it in the Minnesota series, or in the Minnesota series, they kind of set him down. And so if you have a guy that means that much to you, but you're not going to be able to play him in the playoffs, that kind of puts you in a bad spot. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But again, I think this team needs to make a move, and I would still be surprised if they do. I'm not expecting them to do anything, because as I said when I first jumped on, I just think the front office is kind of content with kind of right now any way the wind blows. If we're still second in the West, even though you had an 8 or 9 game cushion, now it's down to 2.5, and you were neck and neck with Denver. Now you're 4.5 games back. But I think they're just kind of content to kind of see where it plays out. I mean, they're still in this kind of 2 timeline thing. You got your 3 guys, and then you're still kind of trying to develop on the back end as well. And I just feel like they're good enough to where you shouldn't be worried about necessarily developing right now. I think you have a chance. You're a championship contender. And I don't think they need anything big. I think a couple moves here and there around the margins could kind of put them in a position to where they can really do this. And I just think the front office is just kind of viewing this different. Like, well, these guys are young, 22, 23 years old. We are going to be contending for 7, 8 years. We're not going to do anything that jeopardizes anything that could happen long term. But I just feel like they should have a little bit more on the side of we can win right now. But it just doesn't seem like that's kind of the way they're viewing it.
And I'm gonna tell you, man, one thing I know in sports, and I know you know too, you can't blow those windows. You know, you can think that window's gonna be open forever, and it's not. You know, and that thing closes, and you know, then you're just gonna say, "What if?" At the end of the day, and you know, you kind of looking at some of these guys, and I'm not knocking guys like Roddy or LaRavia necessarily. I'm not saying that they suck or anything, but they're not guys that. You know, even though Roddy's gotten better, you know, clearly, you know, as the years gone along, but that's not when it becomes playoff time. You still don't know if you can trust that. when it comes down to it. You look at Zaire, it's kind of taking a little step back compared to where I think most people thought he was going to be. I think the Grizz thought he could be a Dillon replacement. I think a lot of people felt like that.
Yeah.
And now, you're looking at, I don't know, so it's looking kind of iffy. To me, they would be nuts if they didn't do something, because this could get worse before it gets better. And then you got this other stuff going on. Let me ask you about that. Let me ask you about that. I got to. And just to introduce it for the people, y'all just coming in, this Talk Sports Live. I'm your host, Joshua Midgett, here on Talkback Live Network. Got my guy Isaac Simpson calling in, joining me, talking Grizz. And I've been wondering this for a while, because I've heard kind of behind the scenes a little bit about it. And now it's kind of starting to leak out, publicly. But I ain't gonna say some stuff I have heard, but there are people starting to get concerned about Ja Morant and his people around him. And I know that's kind of been a topic of conversation. There was the article in The Athletic that was written. The Indiana Pacers travel team supposedly thought there was a laser sight gun pointed at them by Ja's entourage while they were driving by. But the NBA is investigating and said they have not been able to substantiate that. But there was an altercation between Ja Morant's entourage and the Indiana Pacers travel party. So that's got people wondering, hey, what's the deal? What are you doing? And that's become more of a public conversation. Is there concern to be had around the people Ja's associating himself with? What do you think about that? And could that become a big distraction? Or has it already become a distraction going forward?
Yeah, man, I think it's actually already become a distraction. I think a little bit of that is also part of why we're seeing this team struggle. Just a lot of noise.
Yeah, a lot of noise
outside. The Grizzlies have kind of become have this reputation of being this team that talks and doesn't back it up, and you kind of see different incidents. It seems like almost every game now there's something. I mean, you got the Dillon Brooks thing. People are jawing back and forth, because I think teams come into these games against the Grizzlies knowing, with this young team talking, man, we're not going to let them punk us. So they're already kind of on high alert for that. And that's kind of why you see these situations coming. And I think it's kind of weighing on them. Ja with the comments, we're fine in the West. And then they start losing games and haven't been backing it up. And I think that put a lot of pressure on them. And I think it has teams gunning for them. Even these bad teams, when they come in, they're like, well, we really want to beat this team above anything else. And I think they're struggling with that. As far as the other stuff we're talking about, man, Ja has to rein this in, man. You can't have this type of stuff going on, even if he wasn't involved with it. What they say he was in the SUV, the one, but they don't know if it was the gun. Even so, it was your entourage and your guys, and you're the one that has everything to lose.
Yeah,
nobody cares about who those guys are. When these stories come out, it's Ja Morant. Ja Morant is involved with this, and you have endorsement deals with Nike and stuff, and you're putting all that kind of stuff at jeopardy. You can't lose that over stuff like this, man. When I first read the story, I couldn't believe it. How wild that was. That, like I said, the NBA hasn't been able to substantiate the laser sight part of the situation. They come to the conclusion that there was an altercation between some of the guys and the Pacers on the team. But this, of course, stemming from the game where Ja Morant and Andrew Nembhard kind of had words, and one of his guys on the sideline kind of came to the court. He got ejected. FedEx Forum. He's been banned for a year. So, yeah, man, that kind of stuff right there, man, this is not something that the team needs. And, I mean, you see Ja last night, that he didn't play in the game last night, but they just showed him a couple of times, and he wasn't the same. I mean, you can tell it's affecting him, and he's the best player on the team, the leader of the team, and when he's having issues, I mean, that stuff's definitely going to spill over to the rest of the guys. So it's definitely not something that they need, and I think all of this stuff has kind of affected them. I think already it's kind of affected them. So he has to kind of find a way to rein that in, man, because you can't have this type of stuff going on. Definitely cannot.
Not at all. And I'm going to tell you, I saw his response. I know he was talking about he might speak on it if it don't get handled. And I know he's mainly talking about that article. And, it came out, of course, with the NBA's investigation, not finding any, substantiating any of it. But then at the same time, I saw his tweet about, his brother. He said his brother, getting banned by the FedEx Forum.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, look, come on now. Like this is not what you need, because like you said, as the leader of this team, because you're not just a guy anymore. You're the guy.
Yeah.
And not just of the Grizzlies. I mean, he's been considered one of the faces of the league at this point, or future faces of the league. You got your shoe deal. You got all this stuff positively going about. You got to get that stuff together, him and his family, and hopefully they do, because this is still in the early stages, and last thing you need is stuff like this crumbling around. And I must ask you this. I was pretty hard on Coach Jenkins. You might have saw my post. You know what I'm saying? I might have said the word trash a few times, and I still agree. And I'm not saying he's a trash coach, but lately, certain things in games, specifically that just ring in my mind the last two games, the constant high pick and rolls with Xavier Tillman and Tyus Jones, to when you got Jaren and Desmond Bane just standing in the corners. I don't understand what's going on there. But what do you think about Coach Jenkins in this situation? Does he deserve the criticism that he's starting to get? Because this is his first real taste of criticism here.
Yeah, man. There's no question he's been struggling as of late. There's no question about that. I mean, I was right there with you last night. I mean, you looking at that game and you going ISO Tyus Jones, and that's no shot at Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones has been fantastic in his own right for the position that he's in, but without Ja in a close game situation like that, man, ISO Tyus Jones ain't it. That ain't what you need to be seeing when you got a guy that's just been named an All-Star in Jaren Jackson Jr., who for some reason they continue not to feature, and that's been a criticism that I've had for a couple of years now. Yeah. I mean, you see how successful they are when Jaren gets in the paint and does his thing, and they just go away from it. He has mismatches. He's there calling for the ball, and they just don't get it to him. And I don't know if that's by design or that's just Ja looking him off most of the time when he's in there, but that's been a big issue, and I give a criticism for that. And like you said, man, you got Jaren out there last night, you got Desmond Bane, and you got ISO Tyus Jones giving the ball to Zaire. Just terrible mismanagement and late game execution here, especially as of late during his losing streak. So I think the criticism is fair. I know he's a young coach, and he's not trash, like you said. I mean, this rise that this team has had in the player development at times, you have to give him a lot of credit for that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he's definitely not above criticism, and because this is a team that is supposed to be one of the best in the league, and there's a standard now. This isn't we're rebuilding or anything. This team has created a standard for the success that they've had, and that hasn't been. They've been below their standard lately, and a lot of it has to do with he's very robotic in the way that he coaches. He doesn't coach by feel. You pretty much know what the rotations are. Like a team could be going on a 10-0 run on them, and when it's time for them to take Ja out, the time of the game they use to take him out, they're still going to take him out. Yeah. He doesn't like other teams. If other teams want to run or something, they'll kind of keep their stars in. Mm-hmm. He's pretty much going to do the same thing. I don't care what. No matter what's going on in the game, he kind of just stays the same. He has this strict rotation time limits that he sticks to. Every now and then he has to deviate from it, but pretty much you can pretty much predict what he's going to do. And if we can at home can predict what he's going to do, and in the media, the other team can predict what he's going to do. So he definitely deserves some criticism, man. It's been bad as of late, and I don't understand, because it feels like he's kind of regressed in some areas. It feels like he was a better coach last year, and that's not a trend that you want to see either.
No, not at all. And I'm telling you, like, man, the one lineup, you talk about the Portland game, I know exactly what you're talking about with Jaren, especially. They had nothing but 6'5" guys, trying to guard Jaren late in the game. The few times he did get it, easy buckets down low, just refused to go back to it. And then last night, I'm sitting watching. Toronto's got all this length and athleticism. You stick, Tyus, not even that. You had Bane at point guard, Zaire, David Roddy, Brandon Clark, Xavier. I'm like, what is this slow, short arm lineup out here that can't dribble, can't do nothing in there?
I just didn't get it, man.
No, it just didn't make no sense. So it is what it is. Hopefully that changes. I'll be glad when All-Star break gets here, so we can, watch.
Yeah, they need a refresh. They need a refresh in a biggest way. I mean, he kind of talked about they hadn't had any practice time. It looks like they haven't, because they got to get some things figured out. Not only the players, but the teams themselves, man, have to take a look in the mirror and try to figure some of this stuff out. But Yeah, man. I was just listening to you, man. Wanted to check in.
Appreciate it,
What's
man.
going on, man? Didn't mean to hijack the show or anything, but yeah, man. Just wanted to check in with you.
All right, man. Hey, good stuff, man. Appreciate the call, man, as always.
Man, no problem. Anytime.
All right. That's my man, Isaac Simpson. Just watching, checking out. Came was an impromptu guest. So I am glad he called, though, because I definitely wanted to get his thoughts on those things. I appreciate you watching. Got Bob here in the comments. Says Jenkins, some are saying that he needs to go. What do you think? Well, me, I'm curious what y'all think. And I did see some of that in my post, matter of fact. Last night, the guy was saying, Coach Jenkins needs to get up out of here, but I'm not saying that right now. The Grizz are still in the top 5, top 2 in the Western Conference as of right now. But despite all that, he needs the criticism. And people need to wake up. People say, you can't criticize. Yeah, you can. Okay, how good you are. Okay, how good you've been. You got to go off what we see right now. As of right now, trash is the appropriate word. I know trash is a strong word. You're talking about garbage. You're talking about stanky smells. You think banana peels, rotten eggs, all of that. Well, that's what they look like. They look like all of that stuff over the past couple of nights. And if you don't think that, you're in denial. Period. It just is what it is. So, we'll see what happens going forward, man. But I do think some things need to change. So I'm curious. Y'all that are watching, more y'all coming on in. This is Talk Sports Live. I'm your host, Joshua Midgett, right here on Talkback Live Network, talking Grizzlies, talking all the drama going on surrounding the team. And what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to play a clip. This was from Undisputed this morning. And I know a lot of people, especially Grizzlies fans, understandably so, feel some type of way about Shannon Sharpe and the things, ever since that okay, yeah. But I'm gonna get that in a sec. I got somebody give me some notes to get to in a little bit. But like I said, I got this clip here. Shannon Sharpe gave his thoughts on the Ja Morant situation. And he got a friend of his being banned from FedEx Forum. You got people in his entourage getting altercations with the other team. Stuff you just can't have happen. I don't care who you are. Shannon gave his thoughts, and I thought they were interesting enough to play on the show. So y'all give me your thoughts on this.
I wish Ja would realize that he's not a thug. Ja is a really good basketball player. Ja did everything he could to lift himself and his family out of this type of environment and to get away from this. And for some reason, he wants to surround himself with these type of people. Why? Bro, you not hard. That's not your life. People that in that life would give anything to be in your life.
Great point.
For some reason, you are worth 30. You got a $200 million contract, and you want people in the NBA to think you hood, to think you gangster, because you roll with these type of people. Bro, you putting yourself in harm's way when you don't have to. Nobody looks at you, John, and think, man, that's a thug. He hood. He down. He by. I'm gonna let him live to see another day. I'm gonna do this. You're not gonna do nothing. What you're gonna do is get yourself in trouble, put yourself and your family in harm's way when you don't have to. Just play basketball. If you want to do all that chirping and all that about y'all good, how great you are, even though your record indicate since you made your statement, Dylan Brooks made his statement, you've been awful. Have at that. I got no problem. I wish you wouldn't talk so much, considering y'all talk so much to have done so little. That's a part of it. I get that. But this, what you're going about, pretending like you down like that, like you tote, that you carry, bruh, you putting yourself in harm's way. And it's not a good look for you. Stop this, man. This is not you. You played basketball to get out of this environment. You could have, I guarantee you got homeboys. You say that's your fam. You tweet out that's your fam that probably had talent like you, but they chose that life. Bro, you need to let that go, because that's not you. It's not. You pretend like you hard, but you're not, Ja. You opening yourself up. You're putting yourself in a position you don't even need to be in. And for what? For street cred? Come on, bro.
So there it is, Shannon Sharpe giving his honest thoughts on the situation with John, entourage, allegations being levied by the Indiana Pacers and their group, the traveling party, we're calling it, and saying that John's entourage came and threatened them with a gun, even though the NBA's investigation proved that it could not be substantiated, the gun charge. But nonetheless, I do think it's too much going on with the Grizzlies. And look, I'm like this. I love the fact that the Grizzlies are confident. I love the fact that the Grizzlies even talk to a degree, right? But I think there's a level that you have to get to where you're like, okay, you don't want this to interfere with on the court. The reason why I had no problem with the way they talk and their bravado and their confidence last year especially was because it clearly did not affect them on the court. They were still focused on the court. They were still focused in game situations. They were still focused on winning games. They weren't letting their bravado and their confidence disrupt what they're doing. They were letting it fuel what they're doing. At this point, it's beginning to look like it's disrupting what they're doing. And when it gets to that point, you need to dial it back. You just need to. Now, this comes back around. Coach Jenkins. Is he the man to handle this group of guys? Now, he's done a decent job up until this point. He's let them be themselves. He's not stopping them from saying things. He's not stopping them from talking. Coach doesn't talk, but he's not stopping them from doing so and being themselves. But is there a certain point where you have to rein in your guys, where you got to get out there and get in their face and say some things? I saw last night, and I've heard from people that say Coach Jenkins is not one to bite his tongue with his team, and I did see that last night when it came to their lack of rebounding and effort in certain situations. He was really getting in their faces with it. Do you think they need more of that going forward? Is that something that he does on the regular? And can he do that at this point with the establishment the relationship that they've established up until this point? Now you got Bob here says some would say if he was black, they would be saying that he needs to go. Well, I'll put it this way. If they did say that, and I'm curious, once again, y'all let me know what you think in the comments, or you can call in 901-213-6020, and I'll get you on in here. But to me, one, I do think that's true because of what we've seen in the past here. You can go back to Lionel, things like that. When people start feeling some type of way about lineups and mistakes being made, people not playing enough, certain people playing more than they should. That was a problem people had with Lionel, and Lionel was the winningest coach in Grizzlies history. You know, and even me in certain situations when it came down to the Tony Allen, O.J. Mayo, other guys that were here, I forget some of those dudes. People felt should have played less, should have played more. Need to get them out of here type of thing, all that stuff, despite winning 50-plus games and going to the playoffs, Western Conference Finals, things of that nature. Should that even be a conversation or a thought with Coach Jenkins right now? To me, I wouldn't do that with anybody, black or white. If Coach Jenkins was black, I'd feel the same way that you shouldn't talk about getting rid of this guy. But it's a situation that needs to be monitored. Because like Isaac said a few minutes ago, that window of a championship is open right now. But how long is it going to stay open? Things need to change. Something has to change. I'm not saying the coach. I mean, when you fire a coach, that's a nuclear change. You know, sometimes it can result in nuclear good things or nuclear terrible things. That's a huge change to make. You're changing the way you play. You're changing your system. You're changing your coaches, the staff, all that stuff. You don't need a big change like that right now and blow things up. But I do think there needs to be some changes on the roster. I do think they need to get better in certain aspects, and I think the Steven Adams injury has exposed the weaknesses on this team. I think you need a legitimate center to back up Steven Adams that could do some similar things that Steven Adams does. I think Xavier Tillman is a good option off the bench, but he's only 6'8". Steven Adams is 7 feet tall. Tillman does a great job for his size coming off the bench, but still, you're going to be severely undersized. You got to think about the playoffs here and what it's going to look like down the line when Steven Adams, if or when he's not going to be able to be out there, whether it's foul trouble, whether it's anything else. You got to look down the line. Dylan Brooks been struggling from the field this year, but I think I still don't mind him being a guy that's on your team. But to me, it's not even just Brooks. I know people can't stand Brooks, and I get it. I'm not trying to defend him and everything. I think he was wrong with that low blow he delivered the other day, like a wrestler hitting somebody below the belt and getting smacked for it. I think, again, this is just all a part of the Grizzlies needing to calm down. But with that being said, I think the wing rotation is coming to question. Look at Zaire. He was supposed to take a step this year. He's not. Taking a step backwards. You got guys like David Roddy. Jake LaRavia was the Grizzlies' first-round pick. And he's out there balling with the G League. But again, that's a G League. So what needs to happen here? Let's go to the phone lines.
Call from
Bro, Jet.
to accept, press 1.
Bro, Jet, how you doing, sir? What you thinking?
Oh, I take tolerable. But yeah, what's going on? I want to touch on this Josh situation first, and then the whole Grizzly deal.
Yeah.
I actually agree with the boy Shay, named Shay. Yeah. Shannon Shaw.
Uh-huh.
I agree with him. He said something semi-intelligent for change right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite like the way he said it, because he's saying it in a slick, got you, or that's what you get type of tone. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
While trying to be father, uncle-y and teaching, but at the same time, he has that little chatty tone to it, too.
Yeah.
And what I worry about that is if a person like Josh moving that way, that sometimes can make that type of person try to do something to prove he is legit. You know what I'm saying? Because what you're doing is questioning his manhood or his gangster or whatever. But yeah, he said something that I've been saying for years. You got a lot of these kids now, and what Josh doing is unfortunately giving fuel to that attitude. The suburban children who are raised by two-parent homes, who are black or whatever, but they still try to go full 100 into the culture.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To that culture.
Yeah.
And that's and to this point, those kids really didn't have that role model. They don't have a lot of it. Drake is kind of one, who went from Degrassi to doing what he does. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's kind of one, but he ain't doing the full thuggy thing.
Nah.
And so, I understand where John came from. It's a small town, but it has its element, I understand that. But do you have a dad and a mom, and your dad is out there on courtside, and that's what I further dislike about it, because it's like, the thing we're having is the images of the black dad, and your black dad is there, and we still get into gangster stuff and gangster things. Now, I like it. I like all of the image up until this point where you start to talk about good stuff that happens after the game is over.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's getting into the ridiculous, and it's selling the culture. It's selling people in poverty who ain't gonna never play basketball, who ain't gonna never sell a rap deal, but you're selling them on the game, and the game is gonna keep them, gonna end up getting them locked up and locked out for life. You know what I'm saying? Because they ain't gonna never beat you.
Exactly.
And that's what I don't like about it, and that's what I wish he would see about it. And that's some other things that's going on with Ja's team or this Ja movement that I don't like, that I never said anything about, because I don't want to be that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not with his posse. I got air quotes up while I'm saying this. It's with It's with his management or the Grizzlies management, because I've seen some things that I want to point to and call out, but I'm like, no, let me enjoy this and let's enjoy this whole thing. Like that whole signing of the shoe thing for that one kid. I just don't think that was organic. I don't. I think either the league or the Grizzlies are trying to bolster this whole thing. And I just don't think that's organic. And to give a certain kid his shoe, which is going to be super valuable, because you got the Josh shoe, while there's nobody that got that shoe, right, until April. You know what I'm saying? You know, and you give that kid that shoe. And on the other flip side, some of these things you see with him doing in the community, right? I know firsthand that's a team thing. And how much he has to do with that, I'm not sure, while he's showing up. Because I took my son one morning to the court to train, right? Me and him. Yeah. Then they tell us that Grizzly court up there. And they told us, well, we had to go because they have an event coming up. Ja Morant is coming up. And we have, so it's closed to the public, right? And it's closed to the public. And so we could come back when Ja Morant came back, et cetera, for this thing. It turned out to be some kind of photo shoot about some program he had going, right? And so I get back up there. Well, I couldn't come because I had to go to work. My wife gets back up there with my son, and they turn him around because this is a set group of people coming. Then when I see it on the news, this group of kids that happen to be up there, all with these Grizzly Ja Morant shirts on, they ain't from that community, right? They ain't from that community. Wow. And that's fine, but don't turn my son. He's ready because first security guy told us that we had to go because of Ja. So now in my head, in my son's head, I'm going back up here to see Ja. And I was invited because that's what they told me, right?
Yeah.
I could come back at this time. He comes back thinking he's going to see the Ja experience. You turn him around, right? You turn him around. You turn my wife and him around. I think because they didn't have on the T-shirts or something. But nobody told us anything about a set of T-shirts or a look or whatever, But that's what it turned out to be. And the look is the children that was there. I'm sure it was diverse to an extent, but those kids didn't live in that community. You know what I'm saying? You don't live over there, and that's fine. But like I said, and I never say anything about that because I don't charge that to Ja. He's just showing up, But the way they promoted it is Ja is doing this for the community, blah blah blah. Then you bust in the community.
So let me ask you this.
You know what I'm saying? Doing the community is an invited set group of people.
So Jet, let me ask you this. So that's mad. That's mad interesting. So it sounds like from your perspective that there's two different teams that are doing wrong. But for John, like you got the one team, which is maybe the entourage or the folks that's starting altercations with the opposing teams and getting banned from the forum. And then you got the media PR team around him doing wrong as well. Do you feel like that's wrong what they're doing, or do you feel like they're not doing Ja the right way or presenting his image the right way before people?
Yeah, whatever it is, I'm thinking, like you said, on both sides, this ain't really Ja. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This is a thing that he's not in control of. And maybe later, when he's more like LeBron, this won't happen to LeBron. If it happens to LeBron, either way, his entourage gets into a fight, or he has an event that you present that you want to look a certain way and not have a certain element of crowd at this event. No matter what it shakes out to be, LeBron is going to be in full control of that, right? Yeah. Because he's an established enough star to say, no, we're going to do this and this how we're going to do it, and they're going to listen to it, right? And I think that the league right now is protecting Ja a little bit, and what is this gun thing, this laser beam was a thing or not. I think the league don't want it to be a thing.
Yeah.
They did Jordan like that forever.
Yes.
They did Jordan. I knew Jordan was an a-hole when everybody loved him. I knew he was. And then, you get stories now about him the way he was. But the league needed him to be what he was. But you can't do that for people now because cell phones, internet, Jordan wasn't behind that night.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? And so I think the league wants it to be a certain way. And I think they like the edginess. They want to play with it too, right? Because, car dealerships and everybody sells hood. Everybody wants to sell hood until it gets hood for real.
But
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I'm gonna tell you something to that point. You hit just what I was thinking. Playing hood till it gets hood for real. I guarantee you, the NBA had a talk with Ja and the Grizzlies after that whole thing came out. Like, hey, okay, now we're promoting Ja like crazy because he's a face of the league. It's exciting.
Yeah.
The numbers on. Think about he's constantly breaking records on views on their Facebook and YouTube pages. So they know he's money. They know he's money.
They need him.
They're like, hey.
They like that nitty-gritty, that edginess he brings.
Yeah,
yep.
But they don't want him to go too far.
Until it turned gangster for real. Yeah, until the white donors and things like that start to, ooh, he's a thug. They take their hand off God, all of a sudden, that incident at his home is reported, viewed, and talked about very differently.
Yep.
Right? Even by us.
Yep.
Even by us, because they promoted a game at his home that got out of hand. And there's no way this happens at John's home and the police is called that we have to hear from TMZ before we hear it locally. No way. I don't care what nobody tells you.
Yep.
Right? The thing is, let's not do this way, because he's a friend of the community. He's a friend of everybody right now. But if they wanted to, if he was Penny Hardaway and on this not even on a losing streak, you would think it was a losing streak. But
Exactly.
But if he was Penny Hardaway last year in the middle of that losing streak after he told the media whatever he did when he cussed them out or whatever, and then right after that, he couldn't hide that under the cover of an iron curtain. You know what I'm saying? So it's what they want to do, but it's benefiting them. But the thing is, it's just like hip hop and the rap music thing. We lose in the end, the regular people.
Yeah.
You lose in the end because you're not going to be Ja. You're not going to have the cover of anybody. Like I believe what you said. The NBA talked to them and he's probably going to doubt it. That hopefully, because they're saying, we're going to cover this. We're going to say it really wasn't a John incident because when that comes into play, it gets different. You got Gilbert Arenas. Was it Gilbert? No, it wasn't Gilbert Arenas. It was the guy that came out of Georgia Tech that played for Memphis for a stint, but he ended up going to L.A.
Javaris
And,
Crittenden.
he lost a whole career behind that.
Yeah, Javaris Crittenden.
Who was his name?
Javaris Crittenden. Yeah.
Crittenden. Yeah, Crittenden. Javaris Crittenden. Yeah, he lost his career behind gunplay. You know what I'm saying? Dealing in that kind of thing,
And you know what's funny?
Gilbert Arenas?
You know what's funny? Gilbert Arenas was there too, but it didn't affect him like it did like Javaris.
Because Javaris was trying to make it. So, they had to have a heavy hand because it was gunplay, so they had the heavy hand on the look guy,
Exactly.
And Gilbert got some suspension and all that. But, yeah, Crittenden was a great guard. Still trying to make it, but he was one of those highly touted dudes out of high school who could have did very well in the league, at least on the level of I forgot Sebastian Telfair, right? Who was supposed to be great,
yes,
but just turned out to be okay. But he played a whole career in the NBA.
Yep.
Couldn't get to do that because of that bad press and that attachment he had.
Let me ask you this, Jet. While I got a minute, with the coaching end of things. Now, I'm curious what you think with Coach Jenkins. Now, I'm sure you saw my harsh criticisms and even talking about it here on the show.
Yeah.
About lately how it's been quite trash on the court. How should that be covered in your opinion? And what do you think? As far as Coach Jenkins is concerned.
I don't know. I think of Coach Jenkins what I always thought of him.
Mm.
He's never been a great coach to me, but he's working because this team is working and whatever. And I think if you remove him now, you remove this culture from the team, and we don't want that. We're not there yet, right? Because I think I don't even want to really remove Dylan Brooks. I think when it's going bad, we can point to Dylan Brooks easy and say, I think we went through a spell with that last year, right, with Dylan Brooks. But when it's going great, I think you need a Dennis Rodman. You need a Bill Laimbeer. You need all the great dynasties have had this nutcase, even Green for Golden State. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you know, that it's not so bad. And even Draymond, you see how bad it looks how bad he looks when Golden State is not looking good. He looks like the hot garbage, right? Because he is, in my opinion, hot garbage. But he works for them. You know what I'm saying? He works for them. Now, I think Jenkins is going to go as well. If the team can dial back on this, whatever they're going through, and I think some of this gangster stuff is taking over a little too much.
Yes.
I ain't going to say the talking. They need to dial back the talking. Man, keep talking. If they can find what they had, you know what I'm saying, that edge that they had, I like that. It's just that I think they have tipped over the edge a little bit.
Yes.
And I think not only does this expose Jaren Jackson, it exposes Jenkins for what he is as well. That's all I think. But if the team can pull it back in, dial it back through whatever, and NBA tell them, hey, stop it. Because I think it seems like Jenkins is not with that, but it's like he got his boys back a lot. You know, it's like a bad child.
Yeah.
And your parents supposed to always have your child back, but it's like that parent who got your child back too much on anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and so he's not great, but I think he's just exposing him now. He's always did questionable stuff in the fourth quarter. I noticed some games I watch, and when we on a winning streak, I'm thinking, ooh, he better be glad we winning, because I don't understand what we really got going on.
That's
you know
so
what
true.
I'm saying? You know,
That's
it's
so
like,
true.
but we winning, so it's like, cool.
That's so true. And then that's what it said, man. Like, when you're losing, everything's exposed. You just out there butt naked at this point, laying out there.
And winning fixes everything. Winning fixes everything, man. And so get back into practice, have a team meeting, and get back to doing what you do, you know. And
For the best soul food in the Mid-South, and say $14.99 South 3rd, 901-946-4303. Serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and some of the items on their menu consist of catfish, spaghetti, chicken and dressing, turkey wings, meatloaf, fried chicken, cabbage, yams, greens, salmon croquette, and the list goes on. Some of the best soul food you ever taste in the Mid-South, it is Shop and Save. $14.99 South 3rd. Call them again at 901-946-4303. Been in business since 1991. Shop and Save. $14.99 South 3rd. 901-946-4303 for some of the best soul food you'll ever taste.
All right, we're back in the building. Back in the building. I appreciate y'all coming on in. And come on in the building. Appreciate y'all coming in. We're talking Grizzlies. And I'm gonna try to get back into it here. Shout out to y'all, some of y'all and that are still sticking around. Had the little technical difficulties there, but we're back in the building. Some of y'all that were in, let the people know that I'm back live. I'm going to be on for a couple more minutes before we get up out of here, but a lot of great stuff from y'all. Some great calls to call in and give our thoughts on the Memphis Grizzlies and our situation. And look, here's the thing. I'm a fan. Of course, I'm in Memphis. Lived in Memphis since way before the Grizzlies were a thing. Fan of the team, still a fan of the Grizzlies. And I love their bravado. I love their confidence. I love their swagger, everything about them, right? Been one that's defended them in the past throughout this whole thing. But as I said, I know I've talked to people around me last year when people were having problems with the way the Grizzlies talk. I don't have a problem with the way the Grizzlies talk because they backed it up on the court. They backed it up with their play, with their effort in practice, with the way they showed out in games. They weren't just talking and not winning. They weren't just talking and going out there and not backing it up. They were doing it. And their talk was not affecting them on the court because they gave it 150% every single night. They didn't feel entitled to a win just because they were talking. They went out there and took it and proved why they were better than the other team and proved why they deserved the attention that they got from the national media. And the funny thing about it, most of the media didn't have any real problems with the Grizzlies talking until now during this little losing streak. Every great team has one of these valleys. It happens sometimes. But it's all how you respond to the valley, to the problem, to the troubles that come up. This is the first real situation where the Grizz are facing adversity. This is the first real situation where the Grizzlies are facing problems, troubles, adversity, all that stuff. It's been smooth sailing for the most part with Ja Morant's rise, Jaren Jackson, the rise of Desmond Bane, the rise of this whole team under Coach Jenkins and the new front office. Everything's been rosy. The playoff pushes. The first one, when you took out Golden State in the play-in, you take Utah and beat Utah in game one of your first playoff series, gave you even more reason to feel confident in yourself. You come back last year, you take out Minnesota in 6 games, you take the defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors to the limit in 6 games, really gave the Warriors their toughest challenge of the playoffs, to be perfectly honest with you, which is why the Warriors can't stop talking about the Grizzlies. So everything's not doom and gloom, but just because you're critical of certain things about your team, it don't mean that you hate your team. You know what I'm saying? And I am critical of what's going on with Ja Morant and his entourage. I am critical of the things that seem to be distracting this team, especially when it comes to guys like Dylan Brooks doing the things that he's doing. Love Dylan. I've defended Dylan for years. There's folks like Chris Vernon that's been trying to trade him almost since the guy got here. You know what I'm saying? I like Dylan. I like the attitude that he brings. But you can't let that cross over a line. There's a line. And when it starts bubbling over that line, and you start losing 8 of 9, and you start having these other problems, then the criticism will come. Then you're going to have people turning on you on national media saying the Grizz talk too much, when last year they were saying they love the bravado of this young, beautiful team. Stuff changes. This is the way it is. It's just the way it is. So that's all I got to say about that. Shout out to Red Herring, who's some idiot, seems to be confused on what the show is. Well, I don't know what else to tell you. Just keep watching. I guess maybe you'll figure it out. Have you seen basketball before? Red Herring? I don't know. So anyway, got Yolanda in here. Says, why folks mad because, let's see. I think that's folks. Mad because they talking. Folks loving all these losses. Never seen a bunch of bitter folks laughing about losses. Yeah, I mean, Yolanda, that's gonna happen. When you're not, when you fall down like that, people gonna laugh at you. What is just up for the Grizzlies to do is to get up, because if you keep falling, then they're gonna keep laughing. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is. I'm not, necessarily gonna blame them for laughing at what they see. And that's what happens when you talk that junk that the Grizz have been doing, and that I've been enjoying, by the way, then you're going to get it back when you lose. John Morant said, just like I talked to Isaac Simpson earlier, John Morant said, we're good in the West. I ain't worried about nobody in the Western Conference. I'm worried about Boston in the Eastern Conference. Well, the Western Conference had a problem with that, and ever since that moment, the Grizz have been struggling against the Western Conference. 11-game winning streak the Grizz had. Boom. Shannon Sharp situation happens. The Grizz have been struggling. Steven Adams injury happens. They've been struggling. There may be reasons for the struggle, but don't let some of it be self-imposed. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying don't talk, but don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. Don't have your entourage getting in altercations with the other team. Don't have one of your guys who said he calls his brother kicked out of the form for a year. You know what I'm saying? Calm your folks down. All of that is a distraction that you don't need. And I love Ja. Ja's probably my favorite player in the league right now. But you just can't have things like that happen and not expect it to affect you on the court. Now, with all that being said, this is completely reversible. If the changes are made that need to be made, everything can be fine. We're still second in the Western Conference, despite losing 8 of 9. Because the Grizz were at such a great point, they're still second in the West. Now, they've fallen behind a little bit more to Denver, who's now 4 games up on the Grizzlies, when the Grizz were neck and neck with the Denver Nuggets. So you don't want to keep falling down. This is reversible. Just get your bearings. Get it together. This is going to test Coach Taylor Jenkins and his leadership of this team. Is he willing to say what needs to be said? Is he willing to make the changes that needs to be made, even in his own coaching? Is he willing to do all those things? We'll just have to wait and see. But that's going to do it for me, man. This is also the big game week of the Super Bowl. So I may be back later this week to talk about that. Memphis Tigers had a big loss this weekend. Now you got folks acting like the end of the world. You would think the Tigers were the Grizzlies that they've lost 8 and 9. The Tigers have won 5 of their last 6. They had won 5 games going into yesterday, Saturday's game against Tulane, where they lost in overtime. Now, that was unfortunate, and that definitely was avoidable. Not a good loss. But it's not over, man. Y'all know what to expect with this Tigers team. You got Kendrick Davis, and that's it. You got some other guys that can play, transfers that came in, some good seniors, whatever. But you ain't got a bunch of all-stars on this team. You got one super-duper-duper-duper star in Kendrick Davis, who is amazing. You got a lot of guys that are guys. So we'll see what happens going forward with that. Frankie says LeBron would hold the scoring title on Thursday. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Frankie, don't they play the Warriors? Is that Thursday or Wednesday? I think he could break the record against Golden State. I know he's 60-something points away from the all-time lead in NBA scoring, breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record. And let me know what you know about that, because I know LeBron is your son. Frankie called him her son in the past. She says they play the Bucks on Thursday. Okay, Milwaukee. Ironic, man. How about that? He's 36 away. Oh my goodness. They play the Bucks on Thursday. How crazy would that be? Let me know if I'm wrong, but I think Kareem played for Milwaukee as well. He would break it against the Bucks. That would be pretty crazy, man. But nonetheless, that's going to do it for me, y'all. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, for watching, for listening. This is Talk Sports Live. I'm your host, Joshua Midgett, man. And stay up, stay encouraged, and be blessed.
Go hard, I go hard, go hard, I go hard, go hard, I go hard, go hard, I go hard. Let's go, let's get it, Are you ready? Are you with it? Yeah, we with it. Let's go, let's get it, Are you ready? Are you with it? Yeah, we with it. Big time players make big time plays. 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 I go hard, 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 go hard. 'Cause big time players make big time plays.
Big time players make big time plays. Gotta get it in a big time way. Let's get it on the grind. Head on the line. Gotta stay focused. Gotta keep it.